Today is Thursday, the 18th, June 2020. My name is Ramon Rodriguez. I'm interviewing Rolando, Borja, Trujillo for the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please know, Mr. Borja, that this interview will be placed in the Nettie Lee Benson Latin American Collection at the UT Austin Library. If there is anything you do not wish to answer or talk about, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there's something you do want to talk about, please bring it up and we'll talk about it. Because we are not conducting this interview in person, I need to record you consenting. So I'll ask you a series of 5 questions. Please say yes or I agree or no, I do not agree after each one. There are 2 questions we need to make sure you agree to before we go on. Voces wishes to archive your interview along with any other photographs and other documentation at the Benson Library at UT Austin. We will retain copyright of the interview and any other materials you donate to Voces. Do you give Voces consent to archive your interview and your materials at the Benson Library?
Yes.
Great. Do you grant Voces copyright over the interview and any material you can provide?
Yes.
Do you agree to allow us to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
Yes.
So on to the other 2 questions. We have many questions in a pre-interview form that I've already filled out. We use that information from the pre-interview form to help in research. The entire form is kept in a secure Voces server. Before we send it to the Benson, we would have stripped out any contact information for yourself or family members so that it will be not part of your public file. Your public file will only be accessible at the Benson Library. Do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview and your public file available to researchers at the Benson?
By sharing it, like private information, that's what you're saying?
Yes, but not like email or your
Okay.
phone or anything like that.
Yes.
On occasion, Voces receives requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone numbers or your email with journalists?
Yes.
Great. All right, so on to the interview. Let's start off by talking a little bit about your childhood. Can you tell me about that?
Well, I was born and raised in Cuernavaca, Morelos, Mexico. I pretty much lived most of my life in Cuernavaca. Then when I was in college, it was in Mexico City. And after that, I moved, right after I graduated, I moved to Minnesota.
Great. Tell me a little about your parents. What did they do? Where did they come from?
Both of my parents are from the same state. My dad is from a town called Yautepec, that is in the state of Morelos. And my mother is from Cuernavaca, my hometown as well. They lived most of their lives there. They got married and they lived in Cuernavaca, where I was born and raised.
And what did they do?
My father, he worked for Cartuchos Deportivos de Mexico, which is it was a subsidiary. Well, it was pretty much part of Remington, our arms company. That was located in a suburb of Cuernavaca, and he worked there for, I don't know, I mean, probably over 20 years there. I mean, probably more. I'm sure probably 25 years. And my mom, before she met my dad, she used to work as a bank teller in Cuernavaca, and there they met and they got married there.
So what was it like growing up in a house where your father worked for Remington? Was there any sort of influence with that for you?
Well, yes and no. I mean, the house where I lived during my childhood and as a young adult, it was comprised by other. I mean, it was like an apartment complex which my grandfather built for his children, And so basically, I was raised by, 7 moms and dads, which all share cousins and sons. And it was a great atmosphere there, because it was like, if there was both parents working, I mean, there were other 6 parents, which could be used as daycare. And it was great, because I was every day with about 20 brothers and sisters, basically, which were my cousins. So it was a great environment there. I love that part of my life, because it was so warm. So there was always people in my house, friends of my cousins. My friends uh, became friends of my cousins as well. And back to your question, um, when I mean, most of my uncles, they were hunters. So to me, it was an advantage to have my dad working for Remington, because I had my own shotgun and he provided us with shells. So we always, during the season, hunting season, we were hunting pretty much every weekend, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed that part. And after I moved here, there was a lot of hunting opportunities as well. So I'm still hunting here. So that's kind of like my heritage, bringing up here.
Well, what other kinds of activities did you engage in when you were growing up? I mean, hunting, obviously a big one.
Well, when we started getting a little older, more independent, my all my well, my mom, my dad, my other uncles and aunts, they decided to put us into a swimming club. So we all my cousins that were, most of us that were in the probably around the same age, like 2, 3 years difference. We were like, how many? Probably 8 to 10 of us. We were all part of this club. So we went into competitions nationally and locally, and that was another part of getting to know just Cuernavaca used to be a place where everybody knows everybody. You know, my mom was friends of my best friend's mom. You know, so it worked that way. That community was kind of like a tight knit community where everybody knew who the parents were. I mean, like, oh, you're Rolando, your mother is Consuelo. Oh yeah, yeah, I know her since that. Blah, 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 blah. And everything's worked that way. And after the earthquake, a lot of people, the big earthquake in 1985, a lot of people moved from Mexico City, from Puebla, the state of Puebla, the state of Guerrero. They moved to Cuernavaca. So Cuernavaca suddenly got a boom, and the population doubled almost in a year, and the society itself changed there, because a lot of people coming from other states, from neighboring states, they moved there. So the the social atmosphere changed in a very dramatic way, because like if you were to downtown to have a beer or coffee or whatever, you pretty much, as you were sitting at the plaza or nearby the plaza, you recognize people, and after that, it's like, okay, um, it's like a different world. You don't know, like 90% of the people that are walking around. But it was a great town, a great city to grow in, and it was really safe. Uh, and as I said, everybody knew everyone, so it was really really nice. Changed then. I moved to Mexico City, and pretty much I was just going back to Cuernavaca every weekend. because they're so close by. It's what, 1 hour, hour and a half driving from Mexico City to Cuernavaca. So every weekend I was there, but eh, as I was, getting detached from my hometown, I started up a business in Mexico City, and then I decided to move here to the States. I met my first wife, and she was from Minnesota. So I moved here. We got married here, and then I went back to Cuernavaca. Like probably once a year, twice a year. But every time that I went back there, it was getting different and bigger and more populated. To the point that right now it's with all these changes and all this criminality, it's not the same at all. It's just sad to see that at 9:30 at night, downtown is pretty much dead. When I was young there and I was going to the bars at night, 4 in the morning in downtown, it was like so lively, so many people, walking down the street and having fun. But now it's everything's completely different. It's like a dead town at 9:30.
Yeah, and I happen to know that you were the board chair at the Minneapolis Cuernavaca Sister Association, Sister City Association. What was that like for you? Kind of, operating in this field where your hometown had changed so much.
Yes. Well, I think I mentioned a little bit about it last time we talked, but for me to become president of this organization, it was obviously an honor for me. Which I didn't know that this was something going on, that it was about to be created. So I was invited to this meeting. Actually, my boss at Latino Economic Development Center, he's from Mexico as well, from a different state. But he said, "Hey, Rolando, you're from Cuernavaca and this is going on. Would you like to be part of that?" I said, "Yeah, it was enticing." So I said, "Okay, let's go." And went to the first meeting about Cuernavaca becoming sister city with Minneapolis, or vice versa. And basically, it was vice versa. It was Minneapolis to become sister city of Cuernavaca. So there were there were people voting and tried to get a president and a board of directors for that fact. And I was, at that time, I was part of 3 other boards, which a fourth one. They tried to elect me as a president, and I say, no, thank you. I would like to participate, but in a different scale. I don't have time. But at the same time, I was trying to leave the other boards because my work demanded more time for my work. So finally, we choose a president, which this guy was from Costa Rica. It was so funny, but this guy ended up not being that good. He wasn't representing us, and he was doing stuff on his behalf. So we choose to, get rid of him as a board, and they elected me by then. So I felt like, okay, I'll do it, and I quitted on the other boards that I had, but it was kind of like uncertain for me what exactly the goals were. So we started working on those things. What are we going to do? How are we going to reach out to with Cuernavaca? Who's our counterpart there? Is it just the government? Is it just the local authorities, or what? So we came up with all these questions and find the answers. And finally, when we have a good base, we decided, okay, let's start this rolling and meet with the local authorities. And at that time, there was kind of like a counterpart there, a business organization that it was representing most of the elements there were business owners, but there were some cultural and sporting clubs there involved. So it was pretty complete what they have there. So we traveled there and we tried to find out, okay, what is what you need that we can help with. We meet with the government. We meet with the local authorities. We met with this organization, and at that time there were probably Cuernavaca was the mecca of Spanish schools. There were probably around 30 schools that teaches Spanish, and people from all over the world came to Cuernavaca because of the weather, and it was very close to Mexico City and Acapulco and other locations. So it was a really good place good setting for these schools. But at that time, there were starting some problems with the drug cartels, and there was a lot of bad publicity about them. By then, Cuernavaca was still okay. It wasn't dangerous, really. Unless you were part of the cartels, you probably be in danger. But other than that, it was pretty safe. But all the publicity and all the sensationalist news around here, especially, I remember they were, a lot of bad publicity from Mexico. So at that point, part of the members there, they were school directors or school owners of these schools. And they were talking to me, okay, what can we do? And it's hard to tell exactly what you can do about it, because the U.S. government through the Homeland page, they were situating Mexico as a kind of like a hotspot for like not really safe to travel there. So it's like, okay, well, I don't know what you can do. So we suggested, you still getting students from abroad. Why don't you start shooting kind of like testimonials from actual students and try to, ease that pressure from the bad press. But it was really sad to see how many schools went down during that period. It went down probably from 30 schools to 5. It was like, and the tourism there in Cuernavaca, part of the economy, the local economy, was thanks to all these people incoming from, from all over the world to study the language. Actually, my mom, she, most of these schools, they have all their programs were Spanish immersion programs, which means that they partnered with families that they were willing to house students for a price, of course. So my mom's job, she did that for, oh my God, probably over 30 years. She housed students from all over the world. And that was probably one of my main sources to learn the language, because I always liked the English language, and I wanted to learn it. So I always try to make this exchange of information with the students, and they say, "Oh, if you practice with me, I'll practice with you. Deal, let's do it." So that was part of my life too, and to me, seeing all these schools going from there, it was sad too, because it was a big hit to the economy too, because I mean, not just the touristic part, but I could say hundreds of families that were part of these programs among these schools, they lost their income because of that too. So anyway, that was one of the subjects that that I thought they were one of the most interested subjects. That, okay, how can we help? But we're just local. We're just Minneapolis. U of M had a big program in Cuernavaca. They send students all year round, and they stopped doing it. So I mean, there was nothing we could do, because we approached the U of M, and they say, well, no, it's not safe. Homeland says this, and you cannot fight that. So that was one of the things. But we realized as well that they have needs, like for the community at large. Like, for example, they were in need of uh, fire trucks, ambulances, equipment for the police, equipment for firefighters in the, because we're surrounded by mountains, so they didn't have enough, or the equipment to fight fires there. So through us, we helped them out to get some equipment as much as we could. There was a point where we had pretty much secured an ambulance and a fire truck. So the only thing that was needed just to close the deal was go into Cuernavaca, have a paper signed, kind of like a letter, a petition letter from the mayor of Cuernavaca, and bring it back. So I was kind of like the ambassador who brought that letter, and the intention or the plan was to meet with the mayor of Cuernavaca and talk to him, explain him how this works, and pretty much that it was a sure thing that they will get it. And everybody was excited. So at that point, there was a change of administrations in Cuernavaca. So the mayor exiting, he was so excited to get in this equipment, but all politics there. So we had to postpone our trip until the new administration came. When I went there, finally, after that, the new administration was settled and ready, I went there, and the plan was to meet with the mayor and talk to him, etc. So didn't happen. Instead of talking to him, he sent one of his secretaries, and it was so disappointed to have this conversation with these individuals. There were two secretaries, actually, and it was so sad to see how the corruption, it's so rooted there, and just hear these individuals talking about. I mean, it's funny because these guys started talking about a visit from the China's government to Cuernavaca to promote traveling to China, or kind of like an exchange of pretty much what we did, and he was blatantly explaining how he pretty much asked these people from China to pay, well, to give a bunch of round trips to China, airfare and everything. I mean, it's like a traveling package where you have a hotel and everything paid for it. So they said that they were gonna. They told the Chinese that they were gonna have kind of like a raffle among the community, so some of the people could go there and visit and share the experience through that. But this guy, what he did, he gave all these trips to his family. I mean, he was just telling us like that. It's like, seriously? Are you telling me this? I mean, I'm doing something like that to you. I'm about to bring you a fire truck and an ambulance, and you're telling me that you're doing all this dirty stuff. And then right after that, he started like kind of like referring to me. So Rolando, uh, how do you think we can make some money out of this? And I was like, still couldn't believe what I was hearing. And I said, well, I'm going to bring you a letter that the mayor needs to sign, and then we can talk about, what is next. And, I left it like that. And I left so disappointed on this meeting. And it's like so sad that you see that things haven't changed or are getting actually worse. And so to me, uh, I was I was I had to make a decision, between, okay, one, I'm never gonna get to meet the mayor because this is not gonna happen. I mean, I'm not gonna be begging or chasing him because it's not gonna happen. I have just a few days here, and from what I've heard, these people are gonna uh, try to make some money out of these gifts that eh, that are not costing them anything, and they're gonna find a way to trick the people or something. So I made a decision not to continue pursuing to meet with the mayor, and I left. I left really disappointed, and I mean, it hurt me because it's my city. It was my city, but it's so difficult to swallow that thing. It's like, okay, it's not even worth it. There's other sister cities to Minneapolis that might need in the same formal way this equipment, but to me this is not worth it to continue pursuing this. And after that, I just focus in a couple projects that we had going on, like the Plaza Centenario, which was bringing a statue to the heart of the Hispanic business here in Minneapolis, and bringing the statue of General Emiliano Zapata. And we 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 made it happen, and still there, and nothing happened to it during the riots. So I'm very happy about that. It was respected, but I think that was one of the biggest accomplishments when I was president of the sister cities. But it's so hard. It's really hard to accomplish things when administrations change so fast. I mean, every 3 years you have a new administration. When you're reaching out an agreement with the administration, the new one is coming already, and the other ones are so busy to um, you know uh, take care of whatever the other administration was agreeing on.
Yeah.
So
If I could
yes.
interrupt for a minute, I know that you were the operations officer at the Latino Economic Development Center there in Minneapolis. Did you ever have similar frustrations with corruption while you were trying to kind of implement these infrastructural or economic changes for the less fortunate within the Latino community?
No, not at all. It was completely different.
No.
Yeah, this has more structure. It has a board of directors that were pretty much the watchdogs on every move we made internally. So there was structure. There were, I mean, this organization works based on grants from other foundations. So we actually, I mean, LADC created, I mean, a lot of. Uh, it was definitely the main player on the evolution of all these Lake Street area corridor, where most of the Hispanic business settle. So LADC, I mean, I can tell you because I was part of that development, about the part of this process that went through, because Lake Street was drug dealing, prostitution, criminality, and in a matter of 5, 6 years, it was a completely different scenario. I mean, it was just like, wow, what is this? I mean, everything was, I mean, you were safer on the streets, and finally the city decided to improve streets and lighting and everything. So that was really good. But no, it was completely different of comparing the two organizations. Yeah.
Really briefly, could you touch on your role a little bit at LEDC?
Well, I first started as part of the board. I was secretary, and I was there on the board for about 4 years. Then I um, I moved on, and I started doing real estate. But after the recession, the CEO offered me the job of operations, and I accepted the job, and I was there for about a year and a half, something like that. And I mean, my job was to make sure that everyone was doing their jobs pretty much, and I was Ramon's right hand in order to make things happen.
Great. Let's touch on the recession a little bit. I happen to know that you've been through 3 recessions within the time that you've immigrated here. Can you kind of walk me through each one and what that experience was like for you? Because you dealt with the first one right after you left UNAM, right?
Yeah. When I arrived here, that was my first one, and my idea was, okay, I'm a professional. I have experience. I had my own business, so I thought I was marketable here. I was gonna find a job really easy. But my first experience was, nope, that's not the case. I couldn't get a job on the field that I studied, and I had to find a job through temporary agencies. I was doing, I mean, really odd jobs because there were not really much to choose from. So one of my worst jobs that I had, I was washing off uh, mugs like this when they were like mistakes or errors. I have to wash them off in super hot water, and they provide me with these thermic gloves, but really didn't help. And that was in the middle of the winter, so I mean, it got to the point that I almost got like arthritis. I one time I was driving back home, and I'm sorry, and so I was driving back home, and my hands started getting like this. It's like, oh my God, what's going on with my? So really, I had to quit the job because the reason that I accepted that job was because graphics department, which I was like, okay, uh, they might give me a chance to be part of that, but didn't happen. I mean, after 3 months, and I mean, I was working second shift, so I was leaving like midnight, well, I mean, I was ending my job at like around midnight, and I was like, no, this is not for me. I will look for something else. So I landed a job in Fingerhut where I was doing telemarketing with the Hispanic market, and then that's when where they have also a graphics department, and they offered me a job as an art director. So that was my first real job on my field, and that's how I lived my first economic depression. uh, so that was kind of like the highlights of my first experience just arriving here to the States. And
Just to clarify for the audience, which recession was that? When did you move here?
that was in 1991.
Great. All right. Continue.
Okay, so after that, I I worked for Fingerhut for another year and a half as an art director. Then I moved to Starkey Labs, which is a hearing aid company, an international hearing aid company, and I worked there for several years. And while I was working there, my dream was always to have my own business. So I decided to do it. And since I always been involved with the Hispanic community, um, I decided to target that niche because I knew a lot of people, a lot of business owners from this community. I was always part of these, groups, community groups, and so I get to have instant clients through all my network, and I provide them with graphic services, marketing services for them because they couldn't find a printer or the right people to do their artwork, or all their business cards were like, oh my god, this is ridiculous, I cannot even read what is here, because some people they are some people from Mexico that they have businesses, their school level it wasn't that high. So and the printers that they deal with, or graphic designers, I don't know, they just couldn't write in Spanish. So it was a real mess with every single client. So I have to, one of my first jobs was like, okay, you know what, you have to get rid of everything, because not the menus, not your business cards, not your logos, whatever. So it was really interesting because in right at that moment, businesses started, booming in that area. So one referred me to the other to the other. So there was a point where most of the restaurateurs that Mexican that they put restaurants around the area, and in St. Paul as well, they were my clients. So I pretty much, my main core of uh, clients, they were restaurant owners. But I mean, I got clients from they were selling bags or shirts or whatever, but you know mostly Spanish speakers. So I worked with them to the point that I got so many clients that I had to quit my job at Starkey. I had to make a decision. Okay, which one? This is what you want. This is, something that, yeah, it's rewarding, but not as much as what I was looking for, my dream job. And so I became a full-time entrepreneur there. And it got to the point that uh, sadly, my community is not used to pay these services. I was really lowballing all my prices on my services. And I was putting so many hours that I decided, okay, you know what? I got to look for a different opportunity, a different venue to explode my knowledge. especially in the Hispanic area. So at that during that time, a lot of bigger companies start realizing how big and the potential of the Hispanic segment, uh, the economic power we had. So everybody wanted to tap into this market because Fingerhut did it when I was working there. They launched the first catalog in Spanish, and it was I mean it became about 30%. Uh, their projections after the projections, the results went up about 30%. So it was a complete success. So everybody wanted to, all the companies wanted to tap into the Hispanic market. So I started networking with um, uh, other organizations and get to know corporate America leaders or headhunters that I could talk to and say, hey, I can help you to get into this market. And obviously, I mean, it's really hard. I found it really hard to get into it. But finally,
Sorry, why is that? Why was that hard to get into it?
well, because it's like I mean, that's similar to Mexico. It's the connections you have, which they're gonna get you. So when you're grooming those connections, I mean, it takes time. And my area was a very competitive area. I was really small. I was one person orchestra. So I have to deal with everything. So finally, I get to know the some key people from 3M and General Mills, and they finally opened the doors for me. They start giving me small projects for their diversity programs and stuff like that. So that was a good beginning, and there were a lot of projects coming, and then 9/11 happened. Second hit. So at that point, I was divorcing my Hispanic market, my Hispanic clients, trying to jump into the next level. And right there, when I had 6 projects right at my doorstep, they went away in one day. They were gone. And at that point, I was reaching out red numbers, because I wasn't producing with the Hispanics, because I was pretty much focused on getting into this market. So that was hit number 2, and really I had to make a decision. Okay, I mean, I still have to pay my bills. I still have to, eat and pay my mortgage and my cars and everything. So I made a quick decision talking to one of my cousins, and he was in real estate, and he said, hey, the market is really good. So I said, yeah, that's what I've been doing all my life, doing sales. I like public relations. I like meeting people, talking to people. So it wasn't a hard decision to make. So I did it. And then I started my real estate business. And it was funny because um, my clients, my first clients that they were business owners and restaurant entrepreneurs and stuff like that. Right at that point, they were successful entrepreneurs. They were ready to purchase homes, so they were immediately my first clients because they trust me. They trust me, and they have, the communication was always good. So I found my niche again back in the same spot. So it was really good. The real estate market was awesome, and I was part of the team where my cousin was, and between my cousin, myself, and a girl from Ecuador, we were the star sellers of this company. You know, we were selling houses like pancakes. So I mean, it was really good, and my economy went again up, and you know, I felt secure. But then, boom, gone again. The market went down, the bubble exploded, and again, it was for me another, you know, decision that I had to make. Now, what am I heading to? And that's when I got my job at LADC officially as a employee of LADC. And during that year, uh, a friend of mine approached me and he said, "Hey, Rolando, would you be interested in becoming a partner of mine in a business?" And I say, "Hmm, what is this about?" So he was in the staffing business. He was part of the company, and he talked to me about it. And I was a little hesitant about, okay, is this for real, or you know? And as we moved on, we started pretty much working on a business plan, and it took us about a year to put it all together. I mean, it was a good thing that it took that long. And I mean, the result was pretty convincing. So I was like, okay, this is now interesting. But you know, I don't have money. Uh, I was recently divorced. I have to pay child support for two kids. Uh, I don't have a house. I was living in, well, I had a house. I had a duplex that I purchased with my ex, and I was living in one of the units. But anyway, my money, I mean, was like really tight, so I couldn't afford to start a new business. I mean, I had no money. So by the end of the year, my boss from LADC called me to his office, and he told me that he was sorry, but they couldn't get enough grants to support my position. So I was going to be gone by the beginning of the year. So on January 31st, I was supposed to be gone from LADC. But exactly on the first days of the year, one of my I was still holding my real estate license by then. I didn't quit. I kept continue doing my continued education and paying my fees and everything. But at that point, one of my old clients called me and they said, "Hey, Rolando, you know what? Remember last year that I was looking for a bigger house that my wife wanted?" And I said, "Yeah, I remember." And he said, "Well, now we want to buy it. My wife really wants to purchase a new home." And I said, "Okay, well, send me all the information, you know, price limit, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, style. I mean, everything you can provide me with so I can start my search." And he said, no, you don't have to worry about that." And I said, "What do you mean?" "We already found the home we want." "Okay, let's go see it." So we went to see it, and it was one of these builders, local builders, that they have these, um, I don't know, I think they were like 20 homes, big homes. And the home they choose, it was a 750,000 home. So that was a substantial commission for me. And the funniest part yet is that when we were signing papers for putting the offer, uh, these people from this company, they say, "Well, you are in luck. This is the first time we're doing this, and you have to sign this paper." What was this paper? So they were giving me 50% of my commission in advance before purchasing. So you know, the commission was pretty substantial, and at that point, like a week before, my friend approached me and said, "Hey, so we're ready with the business plan. let's start the business. And I say, okay, that'll be great because I'm losing my job. And he said, how much money do you have? And I said, zero. And I asked him how much money he had, and he had zero as well. So with this commission, with this advance of my commission, we could start the company, our company. And it was like, great, let's do it. I mean, I got nothing to lose. That's all I have, and I was ready to risk it all, and I did. But one day before starting operations, my business partner called me and he said, Rolando, I have good news and bad news for you. And I said, okay, shoot it. So he said, well, we have to meet face to face. And I was like, oh my God, this is serious. So we met, and I said, okay, to the point, what is it? And he said, well, the bad news, I'm leaving to live with my family in Utah, because that in Utah, his wife and children were living in Utah, and he was in Minneapolis. And I was like, okay, and that's for good, or you just tell me that you're going to visit them? He said, no, I'm moving. And I said, thank you. And what's the good news? Well, that you're going to be a sole proprietor of a new business. And I was like, really? This business was completely out of my game. I had no idea. I mean, the deal was supposed to be, he will be taking care of the back office. I will be taking care of the sales. At that point, I already made some sales. So we were one day away from starting business for real, sending people to work with some of our clients, which, by the way, were, again, my restaurateurs clients that we start sending staffing to them. So anyway, to make the story short, we made a verbal agreement that, okay, Charlie, you're going to be there in Utah. I'm going to be here, but you're going to give me support. I mean, I'm going to need it because I have no clue what I'm doing. I mean, besides the sales, I can do all the sales you want, but I don't know anything about the back office. No. Don't worry. I will coach you and, help you out. And in exchange, I said, okay, I will give you $1,000 a month if we make some money out of this. But and our projections was like in about 3 months, we were going to be self-sufficient. But to me, I mean, I've never heard of a business plan or a business period that will be successful, will be self-sufficient in 3 months. So to me, it was like, okay, numbers make sense, but between plans and reality, there's always, a difference. So to my dismay, in about a month and a half, I surpassed those numbers. And then I was afraid. I was more afraid of making money than, not making it, because at that point I was still just me. So I had to hire someone that did my accounting, because to be honest, I'm the worst person doing accounting or financials. I hate them. I don't like them. So I found the right person, which was a client of mine that that I helped her to find a house. And so she's my CFO right now. She's been with me for over 10 years. And without her, I will be here. So it was very interesting to see this, how, I mean, it was a life-changing event, really, because, I mean, when would you think that you're gonna be building houses when you have a nurse degree? It's crazy. It was just crazy for me, and that's the way it happened. So
that's how I get there to when I opened my business 10 years ago.
All right, and I want to ask you a few questions about your business. Could you, briefly touch on what your company does for those who may not know?
Yes. Well, just a brief history about my company. We start providing staffing to local companies. So we were working locally for about 7 years. But I'm always I'm a very creative person. I like to think, okay, what else there is. So I developed this model to help out, and this is based on an idea that came to me from one client that asked me for native Spanish speakers for his Spanish emerging daycare facilities, and it was hard to find the right people, so that took me to creating this plan, because he an event of an unfortunate event happened to him. He didn't know that he had a bunch of people undocumented working for him. He had 6 facilities, and they are high-end daycare facilities. But his specialty was Spanish emerging daycare centers. So one good day, I arrived to his facilities and rate him, and he had to get rid of 60 people. So you just can't imagine the hit on his. Just the staff. I will be crazy if that happened to me. So I help him out, and then I start thinking, okay, what about these other companies that you keep hearing, like Hormel and Genio and other packing plants, that they are rated and they get rid of hundreds of people? What economic impact they have in within all these companies' financials? So it's going to be very, hard to get that type of things. So what I start working on that idea, and I say, well, you know what, I got to find a place where I can recruit people that are interested in working on these plans, willing to move to rural areas or smaller towns, and but I need to entice them with something. So I created this model, and this is what we do. We right now, most of our business are done in Puerto Rico, where we make presentations. First, we have to identify partners. That's what we call them, our clients. We are a socially responsible company. So our first job is to find partners that are solid enterprises, that they provide with great benefits, that they offer their employees the opportunity to grow within, and that they are willing to work with our program. Part of this program is we ask our partners to provide them, besides all of these benefits, besides the permanent job opportunities, we ask them to provide them with at least 2 months worth of rent, with a bonus for transportation that they could use for, put it as a down payment to purchase a car. And we offer them, we fly them for free. That's my company. We pay for that. And we house them for free for up to 2 weeks, while one of our area coordinators that lives in those areas helps them out to find permanent housing. And besides the connection of employers with employees, what we do is we connect with community leaders, with the local authorities, and before we bring the first batch of people, we make sure that they are aware that a certain amount of people is arriving within certain amount of time. I mean, there has been companies that they ask us for over 200 people to bring in a community of 5,000 population. So just imagine increasing by 20% the population of one little town. Without that communication, it will be chaos, it will be shocking, it will be, but that's why before this happened, we meet with them. Obviously, we ask our partners to connect us with them. So we have meetings, like a community meeting, and we explain them how we work and the reason why we're letting them know that we're bringing people there. Because all these people are going to be definitely an economy boost for the community. They're going to be purchasing all their groceries, gas, everything, renting from them, and reviving all these dying communities in some cases. So from school districts, we connect with school districts, with the mayor, with the economic developers of the region or the area, with chambers of commerce, with churches, with community organizations that also will ask him to help out with winter clothing, furniture, used furniture, stuff like that these people from Puerto Rico cannot bring with. I mean, all they can bring is just a couple of pieces of luggage, and that's it. They cannot bring their coffee maker, they cannot bring their blender or their beds or anything like that. So by creating all this model, it was kind of like an involvement of all the community and the our partners as well. So every time we contact all these economic developers, they love us because what? I mean, they're getting more money from the state, from federal, and their economy is so much better, and the diversity is more vibrant. So I mean, it's a lot of benefits that they get out of our model, and there's no company that does that. I mean, I developed this model myself, and it's a privileged position where we are because we really don't reach out for clients. They reach out for us. They call us. They and we get to choose who are we going to work with. Because if we found that this company is not good with the employees, we just say no. I mean, we have that power to do it, and it feels really good because that if you work with a good company, for sure it's going to be a really successful project. That and because of these, I mean, it's been getting a lot of attention from the press, and we are part of I think I mentioned to you, Ramon, that we belong to this organization, nonprofit, that is called Metropolitan Economic Development Association. They help out business of color to move to the next level. So through them, we've been getting access to capital, which without it, we wouldn't be able to support all these machine that we need a lot of people to make this happen. We have offices in Puerto Rico, we have offices in Minneapolis, and we have a team in Mexico as well. So we all have all these synergy that it's people communicating with people, and it's such a great work what we do, to help out Puerto Ricans, for example. And our main reason why Puerto Rico, it's because when we were doing our research about, okay, where are we going to harvest all these people that are needed in these rural areas that are willing to move. So we looked for several different states, and after all, we decided that Puerto Rico was the best option because Puerto Rico has the worst economy among any other states in the States. Puerto Ricans are considered are U.S. citizens, so they don't need to go through any, legal stuff like if you were bringing people from Mexico or El Salvador or any other part in South America. So that was another reason. So then the unemployment rates in Puerto Rico are really high and are getting higher. And, after Hurricane Maria, it got worse. And so that's why we choose Puerto Rico. And they welcome us, and we're working together with the Department of Labor of Puerto Rico. So they know, they are aware about our operations. We report to them about the people we're bringing. So it's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding. That's what we do. And when we go there, we do our presentations. We're very transparent with the interested parties. We call them up on social media to invite them to these presentations. The people that are interested, they attend these presentations. We are very clear about what the offer is, what type of job, who the company is going to be, how much they're going to make, what type of benefits, and all these extra bonuses that I explained you before. After that, if they're interested, they fill out the application. We run a short interview. So we pretty much work. We are the vehicle that they never become our employees. We are just the vehicle for our partners to fulfill all these parts. So when we have all the hiring packet, we send it to our partners. They review it and they say, okay, I'm interested in this for a final interview. We have final interviews on the phone with one of our coordinators, the people from our HR, with our partners, and the interested party. So after that, if they are accepted, they send a job offer. The candidates review the job offer. If they agree with that, sign it. They send it back. We facilitate again to our partners about the drug testing. And once they pass that, they're ready to travel. We program their traveling and they start working.
Right. And, while they may not necessarily be foreigners, they're making a huge change. But, through integrated staffing solutions, you're laying that groundwork and kind of walking them through that transition. Do you notice any sort of similarities or differences between your experience, moving to the continental U.S. versus theirs, or what's that like?
Yeah, no, of course, that definitely had to do so much with this model, because my own experience as an immigrant. Because you know what, when I moved here, nobody wanted to rent to me because I didn't have any credit history, and they couldn't find anything about me. So, and when I went to look for a job, you never know if you're gonna land it with a good or a bad employer. All these stuff, we are pretty much as we say in Mexico, put in a silver plate for all these people that are looking for a second chance or for a better opportunity to better up their lives. So yes, definitely, I put myself into this model because of my previous experience as an immigrant. It's not easy moving from another country to a new country with new language for so many of them, and get to get a part of these completely new world for a lot of them. Some of them, they have already been here, but a lot of people hasn't. and you know, it's a strange world. They have their own customs, and sometimes it's hard for them to get accustomed to new rules, to new climate, because you know, most of our jobs that we offer are around the Midwest. So one of the things during our presentations that we really stressed out is about winter. It's like, okay, yeah, there's winter, and probably you have never experienced winter. And you know, people, they even ask, okay, when it start getting cold there? And I say, okay, my question now, what is cold for you? 67 degrees. Well, could be July. But it could be July, really. And but we're very transparent about everything. We Our goal is to make sure that they completely understand about everything within these opportunities. You know, it's the responsible part that we have, that make sure that they're okay with everything that they might encounter in the future, or in the immediate future when they move there.
So, I mean, you know, like a lot of people like to talk about, you know, the American dream and this kind of constant economic expansion. But I mean, it sounds like you've definitely had your ups and downs and it's really influenced you.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. The American dream is there, but the American dream can be gone in a second. I mean, it's just like okay, what if my situation was different? What if I was the owner of the building where I was renting, where I was leasing, and it burned down to the ground? It did burn down to the ground. It was gone in one day. I mean, it was like there's nothing there anymore. Yesterday, I was driving by there, and there's just rubble there. They just like, you know, it's plain, it's flat. It's crazy to think about those things, and you know, I mean, yeah, it's a dream. That's the perfect world to put it. The perfect word to put it. It's a dream. It's the American dream, but that dream can be gone uh, anytime. So, I mean, to me, based on my experiences, I always need to have a plan B. I always need to have something that, you know, like, you know, the political ambience right now, it's uncertain. There's a lot of uncertainty with the COVID. Same thing. You know, you don't know exactly what's going to happen in 1 month or in 2 months or when the elections comes. You know, all these stuff are influencers of your future, and that you don't have the power to say no, 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 I don't want this. No, it could happen, and there's no choice for you, but you know, swallow it or move on, or you know. But yeah, yeah, that's how my life has been here for 30 years, and I mean, I'm glad to be where I am right now. I mean, I don't regret any of my experiences. On the contrary, I think all of them has been good, even in bad times. But I've learned from all of them. And you know, I was invited to one of my son's classes at the U of M, and it was a business class, and what I that was one of the subjects that I brought to the table, because you know, if these young people are thinking of becoming business owners or managers or stuff like that, they need to know that, you know, the real world is not going to be all sweet all the time. I mean, you need to be prepared for changes. So be always aware of your surroundings. Be always aware of how the world is moving, and be prepared. Have a plan B. That was my advice for them.
yeah, and you described yourself earlier as being a creative person, and it sounds like that's really saved you. You know, you've started a number of business, and you know, you've been able to adapt. But you know, have you always been like that, or was that the kind of thing that, you know, you really honed those skills once you had moved here?
I think I've always been like that.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I graduated as a graphic communicator, but um, a graphic communicator is kind of like a graphic designer. So you have to be creative. You have to, you know, put an idea into paper or into a film or into an audiovisual presentation. And I think, I mean, being creative doesn't that doesn't mean that it's just on paper or in a video or anything. I mean, being creative is someone that is capable to overcome to, you know, different situations, and you know, if I cannot get out this way, I will get out this way, or I'll find another way. And that's how I see it, and that's how I have always been.
All right. You mentioned COVID. Let's talk about COVID. How has this been different for you, and especially your company? You know, where you're, you know, it's a staffing company. You know, this affects everything. How has this been different since past recessions, and for you in particular?
Well, this was completely unexpected. How hard it will hit my company, because we basically needed to shut down all our operations. Before, we had staffing and direct placement, we can call it, our operations now. But now that we have just direct placements, that we're working with people from Puerto Rico, we had to shut down our operations since early March. So we lost revenue for about 3 months. And it's been, I mean, that's been really hard, because we're talking about losing about 40 to 60 grand a week. And that's big. That's big. I mean, without the help of our lines of credit and the PPP and the EIDL programs from SBA, I don't think we'll be able to survive up to now. Right now, we're restarting operations, thank God. We are tweaking a little bit our program, where we're going to try to do it regionally, so people doesn't have to travel by air. And I mean, it's a different approach. We don't know exactly, I mean, what the results were going to be, but we're hoping that we can restart our operations from Puerto Rico, because that's where we're comfortable, or where we know that we can get results to our clients, to our partners. But right now, I mean, we have to do it, and we are reinventing us again in order to make it like a kind of like a regional project around the Midwest. And it's going to be different, and I mean, different in the way of how we did our search for potential candidates. So yeah, I mean, it's and we're doing it because one of our clients, it's requiring a certain amount of people now in Wisconsin. So, you know, we've been working really hard since last week, and we're ready to start.
I mean, no one knows how long this is going on. I mean, is that foreboding, kind of just, you know, restarting everything and, you know, just having to adapt your business model? I mean, how is that affecting
Yeah,
the future?
in so many ways we have to do it. Plus, we have to implement all the COVID-19 protocols that we need to implement as part of our model as well. We have to make sure that our partners are doing their part as well, because that's really important for us. I mean, we wouldn't be able to entertain any client that, for example, like Tyson, that they're not taking care of their people. I mean, we make sure that these partners that we're working right now with, they invested millions in changing even the plant operations inside, and the protocols that they have as a daily operation thing. You know, they have to have temperature testing every day. They have to use masks. They have to go through screenings. I mean, and that makes you feel good. And now, on top of, for example, from our side, on top of having the drug test done, they're going to have the COVID-19 test done as well. So there's going to be peace of mind on both sides that, we're bringing people that are COVID-19 free. And when we house them in our facilities for these 2 weeks, we're gonna have these protocols as well that we have to check them out. There's going to be rules within the house that they need to follow through. So all this is new. All this is new, and who knows how long it's gonna have to be this way, or things probably are gonna change differently. But we need to adapt to the times. We need to adapt to the new rules, and whatever is best for the people we're bringing, and our people as well. Because to me, if there's no safety, if there's no security for my employees or the employees that I'll bring to our partners, I wouldn't do it.
And you mentioned Tyson, and other major companies kind of treating their workers poorly. But you also mentioned earlier in the interview that, a brand like Hormel, you took some influence from, while you were starting your business. What are some of these traits from corporate America that you take away and that influence you versus these ones that, are more negative and kind of you don't aim to emulate as much?
Well, you learn from both, good and bad. You have to know what is there, good and bad, and you have to make sure you don't want to be in the bad part. And again, we have the option of choosing or of saying yes or no to our clients. If we're not comfortable with that, we just make the decision and say, okay, yeah, we'll serve you, but we're going to have to wait 1 month or 2 months, or not until this time. And it's like you normally hear more of the bad ones because that's the nature of the news, rather than the good ones. But as well, you can find out things, good things about the good ones as well. Like, for example, this company that we're partnering with, it is really impressive the amount of money and the ways they have improved their own plants, and they're making sure there's social distancing. It's they even invited me to go to the plant. I haven't been there yet again, but they told me, if you go there, you're not going to recognize those plants because they rearrange everything in order to maintain that distance and to make sure that there is safe facilities for their employees.
And this one's kind of a two-parter, but firstly, you'd mentioned that you had done a few projects for 3M and General Mills. If you could just touch a little bit on, what those projects entailed. And the second part is, having kept in touch with corporate America and, working with the Latino market then, how do you feel that it's changed recently, that relationship?
Between corporate America and the Latino community?
Yeah, in the Latino market.
Well, okay, the first part about working for General Mills and 3M, they were really small projects that were more geared to their diversity departments, more like internal publications and stuff like that. So, but to me, that was kind of like they just opened the door for me, and I can prove them that I can provide them with more. But I just got, sadly or luckily, I just got to that point before that event happened. So, but I think right now, and from that point on, I think all the corporations realize the potential of the Hispanic market, and there's so many companies, like marketing companies, that they provide all these companies, all these corporations with the know-how on how to reach out these markets. And definitely, I mean, I actually, a friend of mine, he's local. He has big clients like Target and other big corporations, and that's what he does. He does multi cultural marketing, and you know, he's from Mexico. He's from Tijuana, and and I mean, he's a very successful marketing partner for a lot of these big companies. And yeah, I mean, there's more than one. There's, I don't know, probably hundreds of them around the country that provides this type of services.
And you know, obviously a big news story during all of this. You know, originally the project was supposed to be focusing mostly on the pandemic, but you know, also the riots and, you know, the killing of George Floyd. What was that like when that happened? Where were you when you found out about it? How did that news disseminate? And, you know, walk me through that first weekend.
Well, the very next day of George Floyd's death, there was a Pacific protest, and I mean, nothing happened, no riots, not anything. It didn't catch much attention from the press, I believe, because really it was kind of like, yeah, yet another protest for this happening. But the next day, it became more intense, and people were vandalizing the businesses and the buildings nearby the third precinct, which was, I mean, a block away from my business. So that really got the attention of the news outlets, and we were following that closely. And you know, when I saw that happening, my first thought, it was like, okay, my business is gone. I mean, you could see the images on TV, and people were throwing rocks to the front windows in every business. And to me, it was just like, whoop, everything's gone for sure. I mean, all my equipment, I mean, furniture, and everything was going to be gone. But the next morning, I decided to go there, and you know, my plan was to rescue whatever I could. I mean, aiming on physical files, basically. I mean, nobody cares for paper, but most of the people will take probably computers and monitors and, you know, anything that looks more valuable. And that was my goal, to go there and pick whatever I could. But I was so lucky, because in 2 blocks, the only business that was with the entire windows still on, it was mine. It was just graffiti on them, and that was it. And I was like, oh my God, this is what how lucky I am. So I had the chance to remove, you know, all these critical files that cannot be recuperated, or could be probably, but you know how long it will take, I don't know. So I had the chance to remove all these important pieces to continue my business and personal stuff as well, like my taxes, my all the information about my life insurance, and everything that I consider it was you know, more irreplaceable. So, you know, nobody thought that it was going to happen again. So I was like, okay, you know, everything's safe. I'm going to leave everything here. And, you know, as soon as this is over, and, you know, we'll be back in business. But the next morning at 5 in the morning, my CFO called me crying that the business was on fire. And so at that point, I was like, "Ooh, this is not good." And yeah, I went to visit the place a couple of days after, and yeah, it was burned down to the ground. There was nothing there. I mean, everything was gone. It was total loss, and it was sad to see that. And not just that, but the surrounding area completely destroyed. Most of the buildings burned down. It was like a war zone. I mean, it was really. I mean, the images on TV didn't make justice of what I experienced that day. That see the all the neighbors gone as well. It was really really sad.
You always have a plan B. What would it have been like if you had, lost like a part of your business during that? How would you have adapted?
Well, to be honest, I think this is one of my points in my life where I feel more secure and comfortable. That I really didn't have a plan B, and I mean, when you have a successful business, I mean, you're pretty much focused on continue with the business, continue with growing and taking care of your people, and that business runs the way it's supposed to. And other things, trying to think about um, how are we going to grow, and is it worth it to grow? Can we? I mean, I was even exploring other options with my business advisors at Mita at that point before this happened. I was trying to create plan B. So I didn't have it. I had the thought about, okay, what's next now, but I really didn't have anything solid now. But this happened when we stopped operations. I'm sorry. So when we stopped operations, it was I realized that we needed help. We needed help pretty soon. That we if we didn't get help, we were going to be in trouble in a matter of a month and a half or so, because we have so many liabilities. Like we rent homes in the areas that we're operating, so we have to pay 3 leases. We have leases on 3 cars. We have our pay all the utilities and all of them, all the insurance, the payroll for all my team. It was scary thought. We have some reserves, but they're gonna run fast if we don't get some help. But we worked really hard on that. I mean, that was the shutdown helped us out to focus on looking for this SBA help. And I mean, it took us about 7 weeks to get it, but I mean, we did get them. And really, without that help, probably will be. I mean, I'll be out of business. Yeah, and right now we're still dealing with the insurance company for the total loss of our business, but we know that I'm never gonna get what I had. They're gonna give you all the depreciation BS and stuff like that. So whatever money we invest in all the furniture, all the equipment, all the improvements for the office is not going to be back. So I mean, we're losing money, and on top of that, we're I mean, the loss of income is another big hit. And we projected businesses for the year And at this point, we're way, way, way behind. And, what can you do? So, I mean, luckily we have now this project that we're very excited for it. My whole team is working. I mean, they're all working from home, but I mean, still, it's uncertain if we're going to be capable. Well, not capable, but I would say probably lucky enough to get enough people to comply with their needs. But on the same token, you think, okay, how many millions of people are applying for unemployment? That means they don't have work. They don't have a job. So looking at it that way is like, yeah, it gives me hope, because there's a lot of people that they are looking for a job. So hopefully, because of that, we're going to be successful on this, and that's what we're aiming to.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't remember, MEDA's the Metropolitan Economic Development Association. So, like you said, it hasn't just been your business that's been affected. What are those conversations over there at MEDA been like? Like, what are their plan Bs and stuff, when they talk about it?
Do you mean with MEDA or with other business?
With MEDA, I guess. Like,
well, they have been part of my business since the inception. They've been helping us in any way they can. And immediately after this happened, after the fire happened, they contacted me. They asked me if there's anything we need immediately, how they can help. And I mean, it's great to have a partner like that. It is just I mean, it's invaluable that you have someone that if you need an attorney, they will connect you there. If you need business advice, they're there for you as well. I mean, anything you need, if they don't have it, they'll find you someone or something that will help you with whatever the problem or the need is.
Have you been involved in any of the protests at all?
No, not exactly. I mean, I was one day I was there when I was when I went to see my business after the first riots, but no, I haven't, because of all these responsibilities that I have, not just for my business but for my people. But I mean, yeah, do I support this cause? Yes, I do. That it was wrong to create all these destructions due to that fact. I don't agree with that. I mean, that was wrong. But I mean, it's a just cause that needs to be resolved, and I support this fight.
Was it? I don't know a lot about what the police force is like in Minneapolis. Was this kind of a surprise, or has there been racial tension for a bit? Or
there has been years, and really, it was just a matter of time for this to happen. That's the way I see it, because yes, the racial discrepancies with the police department, with the Minneapolis Police Department, it's really, I mean, you can really tell there is, and it's sad to say that, because it shouldn't be that way. Period. I mean, it's they are to serve and protect, as every police department slogan is. But especially with communities of color, they're not at all. They're And I mean, I cannot generalize, of course, but there has been so many cases that you know, you can tell that they completely disregard their duty, and they do the wrong things.
Yeah, what does that kind of racial tension look like?
Well, simple as uh, people of color are afraid of them. I mean, you shouldn't be afraid of them because they're here to protect you, to protect everyone, every citizen. I mean, it's like, okay, I'll be afraid of a robber or a criminal, but why do I have to be afraid of the police? And that's, I mean, that's really clear that people of color are afraid of them. They they I mean, it's very. I mean, you can feel that tension, and that's not right.
And you see protests happening around the country with a renewed focus on the role of African Americans and the systemic prejudice against them. How do you see Latinos fitting into all of this?
Well, they're part of it. I mean, even if it is focused on African Americans, the Latinos is. I mean, I was looking at some charts, and between Latinos and African Americans, I think that's the 85% of these type of things happen among Latinos and African Americans. I think it's like a 50%, 35%, something like that, respectively. But definitely Latinos are part of the problem. Well, not part of the problem, but part of the segments that are really affected by this.
So, you had mentioned earlier how your mom used to, house students and stuff. Did that kind of foster this, sense of, I guess, understanding and seeking out of different cultures and different types of people, and what was that like for you growing up? And is it disappointing at all to see, that kind of, those kind of steps towards understanding kind of changing here in the US?
Well, yes and no. I mean, most of the people that live with my family, with us, they were nice people, people that they were open to a new culture. I wouldn't say 100%, but the majority of them, they were like that. They were very open. And during my youth, I have the opportunity to travel a lot here, around the States. And I got to know or to learn more about the culture here, and that there were differences between California and New York and Ohio and other states that I had the chance to travel. Texas, for example, which I found was one of the places where it was more remarked about racism, you know. And I can tell you a funny story about I was there with some friends when I was like probably 18, 17, something like that. And we went to a concert, and I think we were like 4 or 5 of us, one Colombian and 4 from Mexico. So, we were trying to, make conversations with some girls in that venue, and it didn't happen. So, and I gave him an idea. It's like, hey, guys, let's tell them that we're from Europe. you're from Italy, you're from Spain, you're from Portugal. And yeah, okay, everyone picked a country, but two of us, we were from Spain. So when we did that approach, oh my God, it was a difference. I mean, it was a difference. I mean, the girls were like, really? Oh my God, how is Spain? Talk to me about Spain. I mean, I swear. But other than that, it's like, okay, if you say Mexico, oh, he's Mexican, you know? But really, I mean, and I'm sorry to say it, but at least that was in Houston. And, but that's probably one of the places where I felt more, you know, you're part of these, you know, you're not like welcome to the whole. It's like, you know, it's like you feel that separate. But yeah, I mean, it was one of my first experiences with some type of racism.
Interesting. I think the Houston metropolitan area is actually the most racially / ethnically diverse in the country, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, but you know, this was in what, like late 70s, probably.
Yeah. So you traveled a lot. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, what took you out there? When did you start? Why did you start?
Well, you know, I met so many people from the States through these programs. I mean, they were living in my house, and I always correspond with all the people that were there. And you know, it got to the point that when I was 16, I decided, hey, you know what? I have so many people that I could meet there, and they keep inviting me to go there and visit. So I said, let's do it. So I started traveling that way. You know, I kind of like make my plan and write to my friends, you know, in the Northeast coast. Okay, I'm going to be in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Maine, New York, and you know, the next one will be Chicago and Ohio. So I made my regional plans so I could travel for, you know, a couple months, 3 months, and those were my visits to the States. And you know, I traveled by myself, so I wasn't a big burden to my friends. And I stayed there for a week or a couple of weeks, and then moved to the next city or the next state. And you know, I traveled by train, by bus, hitchhike. I mean, I did so many stuff there.
Yeah. How did your parents feel about that? Did you always have that kind of independent streak, you know, even amongst growing up with like 20 cousins and stuff?
Yeah, I guess I was the only one, but yeah, my mom was not very at peace with that. But you know, I really liked it, and when I got an idea, I followed that. So
I mean,
that's one of the reason it took me about 6 years to finish high school.
I mean, it sounds like, you know, even though she may not have been totally at peace with that, it sounds like that's been a trait that's really benefited you throughout your life. You know, just you've kind of had like this life of change, but, you know, being able to adapt and, you know, creatively problem solve, it seems like it's really helped.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah, and you know, actually, all these stories. I mean, more than this, I've been telling my children, and they've been traveling. I mean, not just around the States or Mexico. They've been in Europe, Asia. My daughter is in New Zealand now. I mean, after a trip to Asia, and then she moved to Australia for a year and a half, and now she's in New Zealand. And you know, and my son is like that too. So I guess it's they just took over me. But you know, it to me, it's just like there's no better school or I mean any place where you can learn so much from other cultures and other languages and other countries. I mean, it's so much to learn on that. I mean, nobody you cannot get that if you're not there.
And how did you settle on Minneapolis?
My ex-wife,
Oh, really?
yeah, she's a Minnesotan, and she was born in Crystal, which is one of the suburbs of Minneapolis.
Where'd you meet her?
She was a student that, but actually she wasn't living in my house. She was living in a different house with a different family, but she was friends of one of the girls that was living in my house. So that's how we met. And then she stayed there longer. I think they stay there for 3 months, and but she stayed longer because her dad, he owned transportation company, and there was a franchise in Mexico, and she had the opportunity to work there to practice her Spanish. And so she stayed for another 6 months or so. And, we got to see each other every weekend, and the rest is history.
And also, just because it's a nice story, would you mind sharing, your story with your current wife?
Oh, sure. Yes. Okay. We met in college in 1985, and we were about to get married. I chickened out. I decided not to, and she moved to Europe, met her husband there, got married, have children. During all those years, we never hear or see each other at all. And well, I came here to Minnesota. I got married. I had children. I got divorced. And after a certain amount of years, I got an email from a Monica, which, had a different last name by then. So I didn't know who that was from. But it was one of in those through those chain emails that came with a bunch of names. So anyway, finally, I I got that. Like, okay, this gotta be my Monica. So I replied to her, and we start corresponding. Then we start calling each other, and we finally decided to meet on a neutral place. So we met in Puerto Vallarta in Mexico, and the flame sparked again. And a couple years later, she was living here. She was moving here from Holland, from the Netherlands. Yeah, she lived there for 23 years, and I was here for about the same time. So it was really interesting to. I mean, never in my life I thought I was going to meet with her again or see her or anything like that. Knowing that I knew that she lived in Europe, but I mean, I didn't have any communications with her until that happened.
Life comes at you fast.
Yeah, but we're here now. She brought her 2 children. I have my 2 children here, pretty much all the same ages, and I mean, they get along really well. And now one of her children is back in the Netherlands doing a master's, and my daughter is in the New Zealand, and the youngest ones are still here in Minneapolis, living on their own. So they are both well, they are all graduated except Valentina, the youngest. She's still studying and working.
Touching a little bit on your children, your daughter's in New Zealand and they've got one of the, lowest rates of, COVID-19. How has she been adapting to that? Because she's also kind of stuck over there, isn't she?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I talked to her yesterday, and she said that pretty much they opened everything, They have been, I think, about 20 days with zero cases, but they're not letting anyone enter into the country. And if they are coming in, they need to follow quarantine, very strict. And I think they just can receive nationals of New Zealand. So, I mean, I think they did it the right way. And you know, it's pretty much things are back to normal now there. And I'm so glad that she's there, by the way.
Yeah. How about your son? How has he been dealing through all
Well,
this?
my son, you know, he was participating in most of these protests. So I was really worried about that. And I asked him, Sam, you know what? Go get tested. And he did. And it was negative. So that's a good thing.
And he was about to start working with you, was he not?
Yes, yes. He's currently working with ISS. And it's been, he actually started a couple months before he graduated in May. So yeah, he's in the business now.
How's that feel, kind of, you know, passing on the reins to your son?
Well, that's something that it was part of the conversation with the people from Meet about business succession. It's like, okay, I don't want to be working my whole life on this. That doesn't mean that I want to retire and don't do anything, you know, but at least I would like to have a plan for that. And you know, after talking to him, he was really interested, and as soon as he get on board, he got involved really deeply into the business. So at this point, my plan is just to have him to learn everything about the business, because that's, to me, that's basic. And he needs to experience. I mean, like I told him, you need to be the janitor and the general manager. So, and from one point to the other, you're gonna have to experience everything. So you get to know how the business is structured, and you know what's the role of each one of the elements that we have now.
Yeah, that sounds, you know, that sounds like a really, I don't know, I guess special experience. Yeah. So, you know, we're kind of nearing the end of the interview. I'm curious, you know, right now there's a lot going on, you know, throughout your time here, you've had a lot of economic adversity. You know, it's a tough political climate. You know, there's a pandemic and there's a lot of racial tension going on. What's kept you here in America? What makes you stay?
Well, I have lived here half of my life, and I consider this my home now. And you know, I have I have gone through all these ups and downs and learning experiences. My children are from here. I mean, they were born here, and you know, it's a very special place for me. And I always tell people that from all the states that I had the chance to travel, I think Minneapolis, Minnesota is one of uh, the states or the places that I will choose to live, because I mean it's clean, the low criminality, the winter is beautiful. Just kidding. No, that's really long. That's probably the only part that I don't really enjoy after the third month. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think, I mean, I like the open spaces. I like to see all the green, even when the green turned to white during winter time. It's nice, you know, and it has, uh, you know, a lot of opportunities for, like, for hunting, for example. Or I love being. I mean, I really enjoy the outdoors, and you know, it's right here. I mean, I can drive just 30 minutes and I'm in the woods, and that's nice. I like it. I really enjoy that. If I choose where I will live, I would go, live far from the cities, but my wife doesn't like it very much. But but it's close. It's close, and I can enjoy it. And I can go and rent a cabin for a weekend or 2 weeks, if I want to. But yeah, I like it here, and I don't see myself going back back to Cuernavaca, for example. When I go there on vacation, I have had the chance to be there for a couple of weeks, but after that, I kind of like get antsy about coming back to here. So yeah, I probably when I retire or semi-retire, I would like to have a place on the beach or something like that. But no, I don't see myself going away from here.
Beautiful. Well, is there anything you'd like to talk about that you didn't get a chance to talk about?
No, I think we covered pretty much a lot of my life.
Henry, anything you'd like to add?
I'm sorry?
I'm talking to Henry.
And I think we've covered it. Good job. My only question would be, the illness based on what you've seen and heard about and read. How close has it gotten to you?
Are you
Hello?
Henry? Oh.
Yeah.
Ray, I can let me call you back, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
Okay. How close has the illness gotten to you?
You mean the COVID-19? Is that what you
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Well, it's all around us.
Yeah.
I guess we've been really careful. Not just with my family, but with all my employees, for example. I've been making those decisions of shutting down operations. It's been quite a big decision. But we know, and we are all aware that it's here, and that everybody's subject to have it or to get it. But we're hoping that you hear so many things and so many good, bad, and not so true stories about it. That anyway, you have to keep on guard. You have to continue taking care of yourself and your loved ones, and in this case, my employees as well.
Do you know anybody who's gotten the virus?
Yes. I know some people from the Hispanic business community that they've had it already, and they went through it with whole families. Luckily, everything is well now. They passed the critical part of it. But yeah, I know not a lot of people, but a few people that they had it before or they passed through that yet. So
yeah, Latinos have a disproportionate rate of infection as well.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I guess that just about wraps everything up. Thank you, Mr. Borja, for your time.
Okay, thank you, Ramon.
Let me just add, you're a fascinating individual. I hope we get a chance to meet in person sometime.
All right, yeah. I hope I can be there soon in the South. I'm trying to do some business there.
Really?
So that
California?
we'll keep in touch. Are you in California? You're in California. Okay.
Right by LAX.
Okay. My sister lives in Oceanside.
Oh yeah, my mother-in-law is in Oceanside.
Okay. Yeah, well, let's keep in touch.
I will. We will. I will.
I will too. If I'm ever in Minneapolis, take me hunting. I've never been.
I know.
Not a problem. It has to be fall, during the fall.
Okay.
On September 1st, and then until pretty much November, until the climate gets a little bitter.
Save up
Yeah.
for your snow boots. Come on.
Let me know in advance so I can get you some good gear.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice talking to you guys. Have a great day.
Yeah,
You
you all
too.
as well.
Thank
All
you.
the best.
Likewise. Thank you.